Deus ex machina, literally God from the machine, a person or force that arrives to provide an improbable solution to an impossible situation. Named after the mechanical device used by Greek dramatists to lower actors playing deities onto the stage. Ex Machina was a 50-issue series that was published originally from 2004 until 2010. They are collected in 5 really nice hardcovers, unfortunately glued binding, but that's really the only thing to criticize. It's maybe of interest that the second edition looks even better than the first printing. The front of the first printed hardcovers just bears simple embossing of a cogwheel. The second edition comes with a quite more elaborate decoration in shiny green metallic. Ex Machina was written by Brian K. Vaughan of Saga and etc. fame and drawn by Tony Harris of Starman fame. Tony Harris did also the covers, and come on, there are just a few artists who can compete with the beauty of Tony Harris covers. If you compare it with the likewise beautiful Starman covers, you will see how constant Tony Harris' art was and is. In fact, this may be the only complaint one can have. It's that his art style maybe is a bit too constant or maybe invariable over the years. The possible reasons for that I'll discuss a bit later. Here you can see them both, Vaughan and Harris, allowing themselves the luxury of appearing in their own comic. It's in the last chapter of the 4th trade. They are about to meet their own main character, Mitchell 100, who was a superhero and now is the mayor of New York City. The mayor is a comics fan and wants his biography written as a comic, but that much can be said. The job application of Vaughan and Harris goes south. Especially Vaughan, and his pitch fails to impress the mayor, to put it mildly. So that 2 other guys get the job. This chapter is really a funny relief, especially if Vaughan plays around with this meta approach while stating that I'm not big into the whole Grant Morrison meta thing. Seeing creators in a book kinda takes me out of the story, you know? Funny too how Harris is doodling around in his sketchbook in the meantime. And it's safe to say that this is not his modus operandi for most of his work. Like many modern artists, he uses photographs as templates. If you look at some of his panels, it's obvious that the only way they could be made is by heavy use of photography. For an instance, no one could draw all the different characters so precise and always recognizable, no matter from which perspective you're looking at them. Nobody can do that like Harris does, without the use of photography. Harris works over these photos, traces the outlines, shadows, etc. If you look at the finished inks that are reprinted in the second trade, you can clearly guess that these clean lines are obviously the result of tracing through photos and photographic templates. In the bonus section of the third trade, we get even more insights in the production process. Tony Harris hired downright actors for the different characters. He photographs their actions and interactions, and sometimes, as for the covers, he used them for collages. And to be clear here, there's nothing wrong with the use of technical aids. Most of the artists since the Renaissance or even earlier have used optical aids of different kinds to improve or verify their artworks. But you don't have to confuse the hard work Harris put into his works, into his comics, with the cliché of the genius penciler who can effortlessly draw everything without a problem. But now to the premise of the story. Like I said, the main protagonist is one Mitchell 100, also known as the Great Machine, the world's first and only superhero. The story plays in an alternate reality where Mr. 100, aka the Great Machine, had managed to save the destruction of the second tower of the World Trade Center during 9/11. He retired from superheroism and got elected as the mayor for New York City instead. So we get both insights in political situations 100 has to deal with, and superheroic action in flashbacks to his past as the Great Machine. And the third realm of the story becomes more and more important during the whole run. And that has to do with the origins of his superpower. He can talk to technical devices and he can tell them what to do. From his clock to an elevator or a rocket engine. But there's one big hitch to it. And this one becomes really and literally horrifying. I mean, real horror of the supernatural kind. But I won't give anything more away. I've read the whole bunch in 1 or 2 weeks. I can hardly imagine how Ex Machina had read in single issues when you had to wait a month every 24 pages. I think it maybe or surely was a bit confusing experience sometimes. Not just because of the relatively big cast of characters, but also of Brian K. Vaughan's way of jumping back and forth in the timeline. Most of the time he gives you the exact date, but sometimes not, so it's often a jigsaw puzzle of past, present and future moments. It's no big problem to follow the story when you read it in trades, though. Last thing I want to mention is the ending of Ex Machina. How to say something about it without spoiling it. It's very unusual and ambiguous and really thought-provoking. I think you can't say anything better about the ending of a story. Whether it is or isn't a political satire that widens your perspective on the realms of politics, I don't know. But Ex Machina is a very entertaining, sometimes disturbing, sometimes funny, always beautiful comic. It's not as good as Starman, at least the Tony Harris part of Starman, but which comic is as good as that? So as a last aside, if you didn't have read Starman, go read it now. Now. And afterwards, go for Ex Machina. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.